And we win. That's maybe the most important thing to know about Bread for the World, is that we aim to change the world for hungry people. So over the last 10 years, Bread for the World members in churches, people just like us, have played a crucial role in tripling U.S. development assistance to poor countries. It's still only 1% of the federal budget. It's not a lot of money, but it's triple what it was 10 years ago. We just recently had a big success because over the last few years we've been campaigning for broad reforms in U.S. foreign aid to make it more effective. So we want more focus on poverty reduction, better coordination across the many agencies of the U.S. government that are involved, more responsiveness to local people. It's tough to get politicians to work on making programs effective. So we campaigned, we got legislation moving in both houses of Congress. That really compelled the administration to think about how to make our foreign aid programs more effective. When they came, I think President Obama thinks about these issues. We know from his career as a senator that in fact his thinking is not far from ours. But when the Obama administration came to power, senior officials of the administration made it clear that they had a few other things to do. You may remember that they were somewhat busy in those first months. And they did not have political capital to reform foreign assistance. So we provided, grassroots people provided that political capital. We got Congress on both sides interested in the issue. That created political space where the administration started a big study process on what they thought we should do. And 2 weeks ago at the United Nations, when the president spoke about global poverty, he announced that he was that day issuing a directive to all the agencies of the U.S. government, laying out a strategy, a unified, comprehensive U.S. government strategy to promote economic growth and reduce poverty in developing countries. It is the first time since John F. Kennedy that our government has had a coherent strategy to help reduce poverty in the world. And it happened. We're not done. We've got to go back to Congress now, give this the force of law, get it approved on a bipartisan basis so that it's permanent. But in fact, our foreign assistance is more effective in reducing hunger and poverty because people just like us connected, many of them through Bread for the World, to that issue, thought it through, and contacted their senators, their representative, to line up support for more effective foreign aid. We also work on hunger in our own country. According to the Census Bureau, 1 in 4 kids in our own country lives in a household that sometimes runs out of food. And so over the last 10 years, we played a crucial role in doubling nutrition assistance to hungry families in our own neighborhoods. I want to tell you about Tom Booker, because I think people hear about this and they think, ooh, that sounds like that's really hard. In 1999, we were just starting, together with lots of church bodies in this country and all over the world, Catholic and Protestants, to try to get some reduction in the debts of the world's poorest countries. It's a complicated issue. At that time, it seemed like, write off debts? What about my MasterCard? Why don't you write off that debt? So we were just starting that in the beginning of 1999. President Clinton was in the White House. The administration did not support us. We didn't have one supporter in the U.S. Congress when we started. But as Congress got organized, Representative Jim Leach, who's now left Congress but was then a member of Congress from Iowa, was named chair of the Banking Committee. So we know that if the United States government was going to participate in any kind of debt reduction for poor countries, Mr. Leach had to make time on the agenda of the Banking Committee. We couldn't get in to see him right away. In fact, for a couple months we couldn't get in to see him because his staff were saying, well, the chairman is working on a major reform of the whole financial system. He doesn't have time to deal with other legislation, and so we just couldn't get through them to him. But Tom Booker and a few other Bread for the World people back in Mr. Leach's district. I think Cedar Rapids, is that right? Thank you, Tammy. In Cedar Rapids, they asked for a meeting, and here in Iowa, you can get to meet your members of Congress. You've got access to your senators, let alone your representatives. So Mr. Leach agreed to meet them, but it was at the end of the day, and he was running late, so he got to the office, and there were a group of people there. They were waiting. Tom was the leader of the group, but he was Tammy Walhoff back here in the corner, the lady in the purple. She had briefed him on this, but he thought, oh, boy, I don't know about this. He wasn't, he was a little bit nervous about going to see Mr. Leach. And then Leach got there and he said, I just can't, I got to get to the airport. Why didn't one of you get in the car with me and brief me on the way to the airport? So Tom Booker gets in the car with Mr. Leach and tried to explain then the basic idea of debt relief for poor countries and why that would be a good idea and how it could be done in a way that would require the government to use that money for education and health and other things to reduce poverty, that money and some of their own money. So then we got a meeting with Mr. Leach. And I think he used to be a Catholic. He now goes to an Episcopal church. So I went with representatives of the Catholic Church and the Episcopal Church. But we didn't need to convince him. We walked into the office and the chairman said, not only will I make time on the agenda of the committee, I'll sponsor the legislation. So he moved the legislation quickly. The legislation passed through his committee 2 weeks before the G8 summit. President Clinton was convinced by that process to make it his own policy. He took basically the ideas in the Leach bill to the G8. There were a lot of other work that needed to happen over a period of 2 years. Tens of thousands of grassroots people were involved. But we won debt relief. We've now $78 billion of debt have been written off for about 35 of the poorest countries. Their actual debt payments, debt servicing payments, have been reduced by $3 billion. And one of the impacts of that is that there are now 30 million more African kids in school. And I don't think it would have happened unless Tom Booker had decided to wrap his mind around this issue and make the effort to be an advocate for hungry people. So right now there are a couple things you can do. We've got an election coming up. As you think about who you're going to support, who you're going to vote for, one consideration should be which of these candidates is going to do the best job for hungry and poor people in this country and around the world. And then you can also join Bread for the World. It's bread.org. There's a table outside. You know, we're an activist organization, not an academic organization. So I want you to join Bread for the World and help us on current issues that are important to hungry people. One more thing. I'm a Lutheran pastor. So when I think about the progress that's being made against hunger and poverty, and the progress that's so clearly feasible, I see this as our loving God moving in our own time. No matter what you think about, if you don't believe in God, the fact that hundreds of millions of people have escaped from extreme poverty in the last 20 years, this is sacred. This is the exodus of our time. This is God moving in our history. And I think God, everything holy, is calling us to get with the program, to help make it happen. And if we're serious about participating in this great exodus, then we've also got to change the politics of hunger. You know, we can't just do charitable things. It's not just a matter of technology. We've got to organize the give-a-damn to get it done. Thank you.